Whimsical is the word that comes to mind for this next story by Patrick Murphy. I mean, who thought that what St. Louis really needed was a giant bunny rabbit?
It started with some simple sketches of a sculpture of a rabbit to reside in Strauss Park across from the Fox Theater. Preliminary models don't quite communicate the size of this thing, which turned out to be 14 feet tall and weigh 1,500 pounds. The Big Bunny is a collaboration among local artists, Grand Center, and Craft Alliance. Students from 4 city schools were also invited to design mosaics that would form part of the rabbit's skin. They were encouraged to create images that said something about who they are and what they think at this point in their lives.
They're free to make a statement. This class in particular has a lot of things to say about freedom and paths, different directions you might take in life.
I have a picture where it's kind of like a globe, and it's different forces like people talking negatively, daggers, swords, war, trying to penetrate but failing in their efforts. And at the core we have a tree with the center of life and roots coming down, representing everybody's roots that they have and their values. And we have the sun, which is the light that resides in each and every one of us.
Okay. This is big enough. I mean, if you made him like somewhere in this framework of large, and so it's kind of like St. Louis's rabbit housing all these stories, but together they create a whole new story.
At Catharine Magel's Southside studio, local artists are creating their own mosaics, which will be combined with the students' work to create the rabbit's skin.
So when we were at Cardinal Ritter, we saw the kids drawing pictures and carving it in clay. And what you've got in your studio here right now is like the fired up, finished version of the mosaics?
Exactly. They began with the drawing, and they placed the drawing on top of a wet clay slab, and then they retraced their drawing. And then they cut them out very carefully with a knife. And here are some finished pieces. We brought them back to the studio, bisqued them, glazed them, and then we're gluing them down on mesh. And
then you'll attach it to the rabbit.
Right. And the way that it works is once it's on the mesh, we can pick it up and
shape it
around the form. So it works quite well. I like the process of putting together pieces to create a whole image, and that fascinates me in the sense that here's one kind of example really of how these eyes were put together. All these little different pieces of color are separate. You can't blend them like if you're painting, so you have to be able to mix them as separate colors, so when you step away you can get a sense of something maybe three-dimensional.
The art of the mosaic goes beyond the use of color and shape to include texture as well.
These are tiles that we've made here in the studio that have different textures on them.
Now how do they get the textures on?
The textures are made from some machine parts from an automobile, and they're a beautiful design actually, and they break up the mosaic and give it a little intrigue. Also, the brokenness of it is interesting because together the broken pieces create a beauty that you wouldn't expect from something being broken. So there's a kind of metaphor for that idea of rebuilding and coming together.
The final step is fitting all of the mosaic patterns to the rabbit, which is so big it has to be stored in a garage off Cherokee Street. Construction of this huge hare is its own story. Built around a steel frame covered with mesh, it's sprayed with a special foam that, when hardened, is carved to shape and coated with fiberglass. This last stage is like a giant puzzle in which all the pieces have to fit, not just physically, but in ways that pull these unrelated images together so they make sense.
And that's the beauty of it. It's kind of vulnerable in the sense that it doesn't quite fit very well, but it's also very beautiful in the sense that it's kind of raw, but it's also kind of elegant because it's like, oh my God, it's all sparkling. These images are powerful and these voices are powerful, so that kind of combination I think is just like, whoa, something that I couldn't have done alone.
A mix of the serious and the silly, a giant praying bunny telling, in its own way, stories of our city.